A drunk millionaire stops in front of the royal palace and insults a guard, thinking his money could buy everything. Little did he know what the guard on duty would do and what he would face afterward for that disrespectful gesture. The Saturday night in London was cold and damp when the luxury car stopped in front of Buckingham Palace. It was almost midnight, long after normal visiting hours, but the driver knew the way because he had brought the same passenger many times before. Take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel, leave your like and your comment so I can return the favor with a beautiful heart. Victor Ashford stepped out of the back seat, staggering, holding a half-full bottle of whiskey. At 42 years old, Victor had inherited a fortune from his father, who built a technology empire, and he spent that money the way he thought best, on parties, expensive cars, and proving to himself that he was better than everyone. "Wait here," Victor said to the driver, slurring his words. "I won't take long. I just want to take some photos." The driver, a middle-aged man named George, sighed. "Mr. Ashford, the palace is closed. The guards are still on duty, but visiting is not allowed at this hour." "I don't care," Victor replied, taking another swig straight from the bottle. "I pay taxes in this country. I can go wherever I want." George didn't respond. He had worked for the Ashford family for 10 years and had learned that arguing with Victor when he was drunk was a waste of time. He simply watched as his boss staggered toward the palace railings. The guard on duty that night was Soldier Henry Morrison, 28 years old, serving in the Royal Guard for 6 years. Before that, Henry had completed 3 tours in Iraq and 1 in Afghanistan. He had seen things Victor could never imagine. He had lost friends in combat. He had carried wounded comrades through war zones. And now he was there, at the end of an 8-hour shift, holding position while the November cold seeped through his uniform. Victor approached the railings, swaying slightly. He looked at Henry with the glassy eyes of someone who had drunk too much and lost any sense of social boundaries. "Look at that," Victor said loudly enough to echo across the empty square. "A little toy doll all dressed in red." Henry did not react. His eyes remained fixed forward, posture impeccable. He had heard worse insults from better people than that rich drunk. "Hey, doll!" Victor shouted, stepping closer. "I'm talking to you! Or are you deaf as well as useless?" Still no reaction. Henry's discipline was the product of years of rigorous training. He had learned to tune out provocations, to keep focus, to remember that the uniform represented something bigger than himself. Victor got irritated by the lack of response. He was used to people jumping when he spoke, used to immediate attention. The guard's silence felt like a personal insult. "Do you know how much I make per hour?" Victor asked, his voice getting more aggressive. "More than you make in a month, probably, and all you do is stand there like an idiot." He drank more whiskey, spilling some on his expensive shirt. "My driver is more useful than you. At least he does something." George, watching from a distance, felt ashamed by association. He thought about intervening, but he knew it would only make things worse. Victor in destructive mode was like a hurricane. You just waited for it to pass. "I bet you're not even a real soldier," Victor continued, starting to circle the guard. "Just a guy dressed up for tourists to take photos. You probably never saw a day of real combat in your life." What Victor didn't know was that Henry had shrapnel scars on his back, the result of the blast that killed 2 of his friends. He didn't know that Henry still woke up some nights drenched in cold sweat, reliving the moment he had to apply a tourniquet to his own leg while still under enemy fire. He knew absolutely nothing about the man he was insulting. "My father built an empire," Victor said, returning to stand in front of the guard. "He was a real man, built something from nothing. And you? What did you create? What did you build? Nothing. You just stand there." Henry breathed slowly, maintaining control. He thought of his wife, Sarah, who was 6 months pregnant with their first child. He thought about how proud she would be to know he kept his composure even in the face of such pathetic provocation. He thought of his father, a veteran of the Falklands War, who always said that true strength was knowing when not to use strength. "Hey!" Victor slapped the iron railing. "I'm talking to you. At least have the respect to look at me when I'm talking." The sound of metal echoed through the silent square. A patrol officer on night duty heard it and began walking toward the palace. He recognized the signs of trouble forming. "You know what your problem is?" Victor was fully into his speech now, the drink stripping away every filter a sober person would have. "It's that people like you accept crumbs, accept pathetic salaries to stand there like statues, while people like me build the real world." He pointed a finger at Henry. "I could hire you. I could make you my personal security. I'd probably pay double what you earn here. But you know why I don't? Because you're not worth even that. You have no ambition, no vision, nothing." George finally couldn't take it anymore. He stepped out of the car and approached carefully. "Mr. Ashford, I think we should go back. It's late and—" "Shut up, George." Victor turned on the driver. "I didn't ask for your opinion. Get back in the car." George stopped, uncertain. He looked at the guard, trying to convey a silent apology, but Henry didn't even blink. The officer came closer, assessing the situation. He recognized the signs immediately. Rich man, drunk, causing a disturbance. Nothing he hadn't seen 1,000 times before. "Sir," the officer said with professional calm, "I need to ask you to step away from the palace. It is a restricted area after visiting hours." Victor turned, taking a second to focus on the officer's eyes. "Do you know who I am?" "No, sir. And it doesn't matter. The rules are the same for everyone." "I am Victor Ashford, the Ashford family. Recognize the name?" "No, sir." Victor laughed, but it was a bitter sound, without joy. "Of course you don't. You're just another mediocre public servant who knows nothing about the real world." The officer kept his patience. "Sir, if you do not step away voluntarily, I will be forced to escort you." "Try," Victor challenged, swinging the whiskey bottle. "Just try to touch me. My lawyers will—" He didn't finish the sentence because he tripped over his own feet, stumbling forward. The bottle slipped from his hand and shattered on the ground, glass and liquid spreading across the stones. It was in that moment of imbalance that Victor made the worst decision of the night. Trying to steady himself, he grabbed the iron railing and without thinking, without considering consequences, he spat in Henry's direction. The spit did not hit the guard, but it struck the base of his uniform, staining the impeccable red fabric. Time seemed to stop. The officer tensed, his hand moving instinctively toward his radio. George clapped a hand over his mouth, horrified. And Henry, for the first time throughout the provocation, reacted. He didn't move much. He only turned his head, slowly and deliberately, until his eyes met Victor's. And in those eyes there was something that made the drunk millionaire take an involuntary step back. It wasn't anger. It wasn't hatred. It was something much colder and much more dangerous. Absolute disappointment in humanity. "Sir," Henry spoke for the first time, his voice low but carrying authority that came from years commanding men in combat. "You have just committed an act of assault against an active-duty military officer. You will be detained." "What?" Victor laughed nervously. "I didn't touch you. I didn't hurt you. It was just spit." "Assault does not require physical contact," the officer interjected, now speaking into the radio. "Especially against military on duty. Sir, you are under arrest." Reality began to cut through the alcoholic haze. "Wait, no. You can't arrest me. I didn't do anything." "You verbally insulted a royal guard for approximately 10 minutes, the officer said calmly. "You refused lawful orders to step away from a restricted area, and then you committed an act of assault. All of this was witnessed by me and captured by palace security cameras." Victor looked around, finally noticing the multiple cameras pointed at the area. His face went pale. "You don't understand," he began, panic replacing arrogance. "I was drunk. I didn't think. I didn't mean—" "Intoxication is not a defense," the officer said. "Extend your wrists, please." "No, I have money. I can compensate you." Victor looked at Henry. "How much do you want? Name the number, any number. I can transfer right now." Henry looked at him with something close to pity. "Sir, there is no amount of money that will make you understand what this uniform represents. There is no amount that can buy the respect you never learned to give." The handcuffs clicked around Victor's wrists. The reality of the situation finally hit him completely, and he began to cry, not tears of remorse, but of self-pity and fear of consequences. "My life is ruined," he whined. "The press will destroy me. My businesses, everything is going to end." "Maybe you should have thought about that earlier," the officer said, guiding him towards the police car that had just arrived. "You have the right to remain silent." As Victor was placed in the police car, George approached Henry. "Soldier, on behalf of the Ashford family, I offer sincere apologies. This was shameful and unacceptable." Henry nodded briefly. "It's not your fault. You just do your job, just like I do mine. Still, I'm sorry you had to endure that." "I've endured worse," Henry said simply, returning to attention. George went back to the car, knowing he would have to call the family's lawyers. This would be a long night. At the station, Victor sat in a holding cell, the drunkenness slowly fading and being replaced by a hangover that was both physical and emotional. He had vomited twice, and now he lay on a hard bench, staring at the stained ceiling. How had he ended up here? How had he fallen so low? He thought of his father, Richard Ashford, who had died 3 years earlier. Richard had built the company from scratch, working 18 hours a day, sacrificing everything for the family. And what had Victor done with that inheritance? Wasted it on parties, on arrogance, on behavior that would have made his father turn in his grave. The cell door opened, and an officer entered, followed by an older man in a military uniform. Victor recognized the insignia as a high-ranking officer, though he didn't know exactly which rank. "Mr. Ashford," the military officer said in his formal voice, "I am Colonel William Barnes, commander of Soldier Morrison's unit. I wanted to see you personally." Victor sat up, rubbing his face. "I came to apologize. Seriously, I was drunk and I was a complete idiot. Please tell the soldier that—" "Tell him yourself," Barnes interrupted. "He asked to be present for this conversation." The door opened again, and Henry entered, now in a regular duty uniform, without the ceremonial hat. He looked younger, more human, but still carried that impeccable military posture. Victor stood quickly, swaying slightly. "Soldier Morrison, I have no excuses for what I did. It was disrespectful, cruel, and completely unacceptable. I was drunk, but that justifies nothing. I apologize from the bottom of my heart." Henry studied him for a long moment. "Do you know what this uniform means to me?" Victor shook his head. "It means I was chosen among thousands of soldiers to represent the nation. It means I went through training most people would never endure. It means I carry with me the honor of every guard who came before me, some who died defending what this uniform represents." He took a step closer. "And you spat on it. Not just on the fabric, but on everything it means." "I know," Victor whispered, genuine tears running now. "I know, and I am deeply ashamed." Colonel Barnes spoke. "Mr. Ashford, Soldier Morrison has the right to press full assault charges. Given that it was against military on duty, the penalties are severe. Prison, substantial fines, permanent criminal record. Victor closed his eyes. I understand. I deserve all of it. However, Barnes continued, Soldier Morrison expressed reluctance to completely destroy someone's life over a moment of drunk stupidity. He suggested an alternative. Victor opened his eyes, hopeful. Anything. I will do anything. Henry crossed his arms. Community service. Not the kind where you show up for a few hours and leave. Real service. I want you to spend 6 months working with veterans. Homeless veterans, veterans with PTSD, veterans who came back from war and did not find their place in society. 6 months? Victor repeated. Every Saturday, from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. You will serve food, you will clean, you will listen to their stories. You will learn what service really means. Victor looked between Henry and the colonel. And if I do that, the charges will be dropped? Reduced, Barnes corrected. You will still face a fine and probation period. But no prison, no permanent criminal record. If you complete the community service satisfactorily. I'll do it, Victor said immediately. I'll do it gladly, thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. Henry nodded. Don't thank me yet. This work will not be easy. These men and women truly suffered. Some lost limbs, some lost their sanity, all lost something. And you will be there to help them in the only way you can, with humility and service. I understand. And Mr. Ashford, Henry added, if you show up drunk even once, if you miss a single day, if you display a single moment of arrogance or disrespect, I will personally ensure you face the full weight of the law. Understood? Yes, completely. After Henry and the colonel left, Victor remained alone in the cell for another hour before being processed and released on bail. George was waiting outside the station, the car clean and ready. Home, sir? George asked when Victor got in. Yes. And George? Sir? I'm sorry. For tonight. For putting you in that situation. For everything. George looked in the rearview mirror, surprised. In 10 years of service, he had never heard Victor apologize to anyone. Thank you, sir. That means a lot. They drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Victor asked, Did you ever serve in the armed forces, George? Yes, sir. 8 years in the Royal Navy. Served in the Falklands. Victor looked at the driver he saw every day but had never truly known. Why did you never mention that? You never asked, sir. And that simple answer hit Victor harder than anything that had happened that night. He had spent years beside a war veteran and never cared to know, never cared to ask, never saw George as a person, only as an employee. Tell me about it, Victor said. If you don't mind, I want to hear. George, surprised but touched, began to speak. He told about the ship he served on, the friends he made, the fear and camaraderie of war. And Victor, for the first time in a long time, truly listened. The first Saturday of community service came too fast for Victor. He woke at 6 in the morning, stomach twisting with nerves. He dressed in simple clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, none of the expensive suits he normally wore. George drove him to the Veterans Center in East London, an old but well-maintained building. At the door, a woman around 50 was waiting. She had gray hair tied in a ponytail and a direct gaze that tolerated no nonsense. Mr. Ashford? She asked. Yes. I'm Margaret Collins. I run this center. Soldier Morrison told me about you and your situation. Welcome, but no, I won't go easy on you because you're rich. I wouldn't expect less, Victor replied. Margaret led him inside. The center was surprisingly large, with a communal kitchen, dormitories, a meeting room, and even a small library. Men and women of various ages moved around, some looking perfectly normal, others clearly fighting invisible demons. We have 23 permanent residents, Margaret explained. And we serve meals to 60 more people who don't live here but rely on us. On Saturdays, we do a special breakfast, so today will be busy. She brought him to the kitchen, where 2 men were already working. This is Thomas and this is Dev. They will show you what to do. Thomas was a tall black man, maybe 50, with a scar running from ear to chin. Dev was younger, maybe 30, with his left arm missing below the elbow. "So you're the rich guy who spat on the guard," Thomas said bluntly. Victor felt shame. "Yes. And I'm here to make up for it, if possible." "It isn't possible," Dev said. "But you can try." He pointed to a pile of potatoes. "Start peeling. We need 50 peeled in the next 40 minutes." Victor started working. His hands, used to typing on keyboards and holding wine glasses, struggled with the peeler. He cut himself twice in the first 5 minutes. "Let me show you," Thomas said, grabbing a potato. With efficient movements, he demonstrated the correct technique. "See? It's about consistent pressure, not strength." "How did you learn that?" Victor asked. "In the army. I cooked for 100 men every night in Iraq. You learn fast when hungry soldiers are waiting." They worked in silence for a while. Then Dev asked, "Why did you do it? Why did you spit on the guard?" Victor stopped peeling. "I was drunk, angry, and I think I felt small inside, so I tried to make someone else feel smaller." "At least that's honest," Dev said. "Most rich people would just make up excuses." "You served?" Victor asked. 5 years. Lost my arm in Helmand. The IED blew the vehicle I was in. Killed 2 of my friends. I was lucky." Victor looked at the missing arm, then at Dev's face. "That doesn't look like luck." "Depends on perspective," Dev replied. "I'm still alive. I can still work. I can still help others. That's more than many get." Breakfast was served at 8. Victor helped carry huge trays of scrambled eggs, bacon, potatoes, and toast. The veterans formed a line, some chatting animatedly, others quiet and introspective. An old man with completely white hair, visibly trembling, approached the counter. He looked at the food, but seemed unable to decide what to take. "Can I serve you?" Victor asked gently. The man looked at him with empty eyes. "I don't know. I don't know what I want." Margaret appeared beside Victor. "This is Albert. He has PTSD-related dementia. Sometimes he forgets where he is." She spoke softly to Albert. "How about we start with eggs and toast? Your favorites?" Albert nodded vaguely and accepted the plate Victor prepared. As he walked away, Victor saw his hands tremble so much that some eggs fell to the floor before he reached the table. "He served in Vietnam," Margaret said quietly. "Came back in 1972 and never really left the war behind. Family abandoned him. No friends. We are all he has." Victor felt something break inside him. This man had served his country, sacrificed his sanity, and ended up alone and forgotten, while Victor wasted his fortune on parties and drinks. After breakfast, Victor helped clean. He washed dishes until his hands wrinkled, scrubbed tables until they shone, swept the floor 3 times because Margaret said it wasn't good enough. "I won't go easy," she repeated, when Victor complained his back hurt. "These men and women fought so you could have the right to complain. You can handle a sore back." She was right. Victor stopped complaining. In the afternoon, Margaret asked him to sit in the living room and simply talk with the veterans. "Some of them haven't had a real conversation in weeks. Just listen. That's all we need to do sometimes." Victor sat in an old chair, feeling uncomfortable. A man around 40 approached, limping visibly. "You the new volunteer?" "I am. My name is Victor." "Eddie." They shook hands. "Margaret said you're here because of a legal problem." "Yes, I was an idiot with a royal guard. I'm paying for it. Eddie laughed. At least it's honest. Most rich people who come here pretend it's because they care. And you think I don't care? I don't know yet, but I'll find out. I always find out. Eddie sat down, carefully stretching his leg. I took 2 shots in this leg in Basra. Doctors said I'd lose it, but I was lucky. Seems like everyone here says they were lucky, Victor observed. Because we were. We're alive. You don't understand that yet, but you will. Being alive, no matter how painful or broken, is still a gift. They talked for 2 hours. Eddie told stories of his time in Iraq, the friends he made and lost, coming home and realizing no one really understood what he had been through. Victor listened, truly listened, for the first time in a long time. When the day ended and George came to pick him up, Victor was exhausted. But it was a different kind of exhaustion. It wasn't the empty exhaustion of a hangover or a night of partying. It was the fatigue that comes from honest work, from real human connection. How was it? George asked as they drove. Hard, Victor admitted. Humiliating, necessary. Will you go back? Yes, every week for the next 6 months. And George? Sir? Thank you for driving me, for putting up with me, for being patient with me all these years when I didn't deserve it. George smiled. You're starting to learn, Mr. Ashford. You're starting to learn. The months passed. Every Saturday, Victor showed up at the Veterans Center at 8 in the morning and stayed until 6 in the evening. He peeled potatoes, washed dishes, cleaned bathrooms, and most importantly, he talked. He met James, who fought in the Falklands and still had nightmares about sinking ships. He met Sarah, one of the few female veterans, who had served as a medic in Afghanistan and carried guilt for every patient she couldn't save. He met Danny, who had lost both legs in an explosion and now trained for the Paralympics because, as he said, if I can still move, I can still fight. Each story changed Victor a little more. Each conversation peeled away another layer of arrogance he had built around himself. He began to see that wealth was not the measure of a person's worth. That sacrifice, service, and survival were much greater achievements than any bank account. In the 3rd month, Albert, the Vietnam veteran with dementia, had a bad episode. He thought he was back in the jungle, shouting about ambushes and fallen comrades. He was terrified, inconsolable. Victor, without thinking, knelt beside him. Albert, you're safe. You're in London. The war is over. You survived. They're dead, Albert cried. All of them. And I'm still here. Yes, you are. And that means something. You honor them by staying alive, Albert. You honor them by continuing. Slowly, Albert calmed down. He looked at Victor with a rare moment of clarity. You're a good boy. Thank you. Margaret, who had watched everything, pulled Victor aside afterward. You're changing. Can you feel it? Yes, Victor admitted. I don't know if I'm becoming a better person or just realizing how terrible I was. Both, Margaret said, and both matter. In the 5th month, Victor did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He used his fortune, but in a different way. He bought a building next to the Veterans Center and donated it to Margaret to expand it. More rooms, a better kitchen, proper therapy space. I don't want credit, he said when Margaret tried to thank him publicly. I don't want my name on the plaque. I just want to help. Really help. Why the change? She asked. Because these men and women gave years of their lives serving people they didn't even know. The least I can do is give back in some way. When the 6 months ended, Victor appeared at the final hearing. The judge reviewed Margaret's reports, which were glowing, reviewed the letters from the veterans Victor had helped, and then delivered the sentence. Mr. Ashford, you committed a deplorable act, but you have demonstrated genuine remorse and commitment to real change. The criminal charges will be dropped. The fine will be reduced. You are free. It should have been relief. It should have been celebration. But all Victor felt was a strange sadness. That Saturday, he showed up at the Veterans Center as always. Margaret saw him and frowned. "Victor, your community service is over. You don't have to be here." "I know," he said. "But can I keep coming? As a real volunteer, not out of obligation?" Margaret's smile was all he needed as an answer. Victor kept going, every Saturday, but he also added Wednesdays, and occasionally Sundays. The center became part of his life in a way parties and drinks never were. He used his business contacts to get jobs for veterans who were ready to work. He used his wealth to fund training programs, therapy, and reintegration. But most importantly, he used his time. He showed, with consistent presence, that he cared. A year after the incident, Henry Morrison visited the center. Victor was in the kitchen preparing lunch when Margaret called him. "Victor, you have a visitor." He turned and saw Henry, in civilian clothes, standing in the doorway. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then Victor approached, extending his hand. "Soldier Morrison, Henry, I don't know what to say other than thank you. You changed my life." Henry shook his hand. "I did nothing except give you a chance. You're the one who did the work. Still, without you, I'd be in prison, or worse, I'd still be the terrible person I was." Henry looked around the center, seeing veterans talking, laughing, living. "Margaret told me what you've been doing, the donations, the time, the real commitment. I'm impressed. These men and women taught me more about strength and courage than anything I experienced before. Serving them is the least I can do." "That," Henry said, "is exactly what I hoped you would learn." They talked for an hour. Henry shared that his wife had given birth to a healthy baby girl, that he was considering transitioning to training new guards instead of serving at the post, that seeing Victor's transformation reminded him why he believed in giving people second chances. Before leaving, Henry said, "Victor, that night when you spit on my uniform, it could have destroyed you. But I saw something in your eyes when you were being arrested. I saw fear, yes, but also something else. Potential for change. I'm glad I wasn't wrong." "You weren't," Victor confirmed. "And Henry, if you ever need anything, please let me know. I owe you everything. Just keep doing what you're doing. That's all I ask." 5 years later, Victor Ashford was a different man. He still had money, still had businesses, but his priorities had changed. He served on the board of 3 veterans' charities. He donated half his fortune to causes that truly mattered. And every Saturday, without fail, he was at the Veterans Center, serving food, cleaning tables, and listening to stories. Albert died peacefully in his sleep in the 3rd year. Victor attended the funeral, alongside 50 other veterans and volunteers. He cried, not with shame but with gratitude for having known that man, for having learned from him. Eddie got married and secured steady employment at a company Victor helped connect him with. Thomas opened a small restaurant with an investment Victor provided. Dev went back to school and became a counselor for other amputee veterans. And Victor? He finally understood what his father had always tried to teach: that wealth without purpose was empty, that respect was earned, not given, and that true strength came not from dominating others, but from serving them. He never forgot that night in front of Buckingham Palace. He kept it as a reminder of how low he had fallen and how far he had come. And whenever he felt the old arrogance trying to return, he visited the center, talked with the veterans, and remembered what really mattered. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this. If you made it this far, comment the words "drunk millionaire" so I can leave a beautiful heart, and tell me, have you ever witnessed or experienced an act of kindness that changed your perspective on life and relationships? Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our next throne stories.